Hi HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners and leaders. Today's guest is Jerome Ternynck. Jerome is the founder and CEO of SmartRecruiters. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Jerome, fill in the gaps. Tell HR Nation a little bit about yourself and your organization. And your journey to becoming the founder and CEO of SmartRecruiters.
Yeah, so as you can hear, I'm French and kind of been obsessed with how to match people to jobs for a long time, and how do you help companies find the talent they need to succeed, and how do you help people find a job that they love. And I started in the late 90s, created one of the first applicant tracking systems, a company called Mr. Ted, later acquired by Loomis. And I think probably some of the readers still use Talent Link, which was our product. And really realized that this first generation of ATS didn't really help. And so I came to San Francisco about 6 years ago now, and took a blank sheet of paper and started SmartRecruiters with a view to finally make hiring easy for enterprises around the world. And we've been working hard on this now for the last 6 years, and it's been amazing.
Fantastic. And could you share a little bit more about the work that you're doing at SmartRecruiters?
Yeah, absolutely. So SmartRecruiters is an integrated talent acquisition suite. So that does everything from attract, select, and hire candidates. It's built on a modern cloud platform. It's got a built-in marketplace, so connects to all the various players in the recruiting space, like LinkedIn or Indeed or so on. And it really drives, we call it hiring success, which is it really drives companies to be able to attract, select, and hire talent in a much better way than previous technologies. And we can talk more about, what are the deficiencies of ATSs and what's this new model of hiring and what transformation we're seeing at hiring. But that's essentially what we've built, the next generation of applicant tracking system. And we serve about 1,000 customers, mostly large organizations, companies like Visa, Bosch, Skechers, IKEA. So large companies who understand that they want to make recruiting a competitive advantage worldwide, so that they basically have the best people in their team.
Fantastic. Always an interesting and prominent area of focus, as you can imagine, for everyone that we work with, of course.
Indeed.
Before we get into the detail, why recruitment? What led you down that path from your back? I understand you have a military background, and obviously you came out of the military. How did you fall into the world of recruitment?
I was in the military like most young French people at the time, kind of forced into it. I stayed a bit longer, enjoyed the leadership there. I was in the paratroops for some time as a lieutenant. And then I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And at the time, there's not a lot of jobs and entrepreneurship in France. Not sure it has changed lately. But anyway, I went to Prague, to the Czech Republic. And looking for ideas, what business to start. And so my first business was actually a recruitment agency, right? Because everybody was telling us, there's so much things you can do in Central Europe these days, but it's so hard to find good talent. So I didn't have any capital or any cash. So I said, all right, let me start a recruitment agency. And I did that for 8 years. So like in the 90s, 92 to 2000. And really, that's how I fell into recruitment. And then from there, I saw how the internet arrived. I'm like, this is going to change, and I don't think we'll have much paper resumes going forward. We should build a software for this. So I started an applicant tracking system, and we basically automated the file cabinet. And then, on to SmartRecruiters, like, well, actually automating the file cabinet is nice, but recruiting is much more like marketing and sales if you want to have great talent. So how about we build a platform that does that?
You make that all seem very obvious, but I definitely think it's not, because at that age, to see that need and to fulfill that gap and create the organization shows that sort of entrepreneur that you already had inside you. And then unlike many others, you were very early to see the technology and how that was going to come into play. So Great foresight that you're looking forward. You made that sound very obvious, but there's still organizations now, as you know, that are still playing catch up and only just beginning to understand that this is the way that the industry is going to be moving. Could you share one thing in the recruitment areas that you feel HR practitioners don't know or perhaps should be paying more attention to?
Yes, I think the key thing we're seeing here is that recruitment is not a workflow. I mean, when you think about what has happened to this industry, for years prior to the internet, people would submit job applications, and so we would, kind of put papers in 3 stacks, yes, no, maybe, and then invite, and we treated this really like a flow, and it was an application process. You apply for a job. Then the internet came and the ATS took over, and so we automated that file cabinet, right? The applicant tracking systems, right? The name says it all. The reality is, if you think about how do you actually acquire the best talent for your organization, how do you compete for talent? It is mostly about how you find candidates. So this speaks to a marketing capability. You can go inbound or outbound. You can do advertising or referrals. You can do events. You can do campaigns. It really is about marketing. Mm-hmm. And then how do you select the right candidate, which is really collaboration. It's a hiring team and a hiring manager working together. It's interviews. It's deciding. It's really about a collaborative effort. It's not like A, B, C, D, like 4 steps in the process and then you are hired. Those changes really have reflected heavily on the performance of recruitment departments. And so today, I meet CHROs who tell me, look, my ATS doesn't help me find candidates, and the managers don't use it to manage the process or to run the process with the recruiters. And as a result, the recruiters are kind of not really using their system anymore, and they have many other systems. And so it's really hard to actually deliver a good service to the business. And I say, yeah, it's because the ATS was never designed for that, right? The ATS was designed to track applicants. It was never designed to market to applicants. It was never designed to be a collaborative tool for hiring managers to love. And it certainly wasn't designed for recruiters to have all systems in one place. And and when I started SmartRecruiters, these were the 3 items we put on the roadmap, right? We're going to design a system that, one, is going to allow companies to give candidates an amazing experience and great marketing tools to attract them. 2, we're going to build the first recruiting system that hiring managers absolutely love using every day, whether it's on their phone or on their desktop, and they really engage with. And 3, we're going to build a real platform that gives recruiters all of their data, processes, and suppliers in one system, so that they are in control and, frankly, also compliant.
Sure. So when you're having these conversations with the CHROs and the people function, what are you finding to be the top sort of challenges that they're facing?
Yeah, I think the challenges are boiled down to are we able to attract in our organization the talent that we need to scale, to grow, sometimes even to survive. Mm-hmm. And I look at a large company, let's say one of our customers, I won't really name them, but 300,000 employees, very large consumer manufacturing type company. And I spoke to the CHRO as we were rolling out the technology, and they deployed massive efforts. And I said, why do you do this implementation? What triggered change in your organization? And he said, we realized that in order for us to thrive as an organization worldwide, we need to make recruiting a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that statement, you're like, yes, of course. If you have the ability to acquire the best talent on the market, then you actually are going to win. And I think the recruiting more and more is a zero-sum game. You mentioned Google earlier. Google is a good example of that, right? Google has massive efforts in recruiting. They spent a lot more money in recruiting than anybody else. As a result, it seems like everybody that's like really good works at Google.
Sure.
And now they can create any kind of products, right? So if you have the right people on your team, you win. And I think that is the number one realization that is driving the change from outdated workflow ATS into a modern talent acquisition suite with good marketing and sales capabilities. And
Sure.
it also means the recruitment function has to reinvent itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course that change is always going to be difficult to innovate and change the mindsets of the employees that have been working in one way for so long as well. So if you were, I think one of the challenges that I hear from our members is that there's so many solutions out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many platforms out there. If you as a HR practitioner looking at a new recruitment solution like your own, what questions do you feel that you should be asking?
So, first of all, I would say, do I want to patch my current solution with something that looks nice on top? So I run an old ATS, or I run my HR system. So I've worked there recruiting, or Teleo, or BrassRing, or PeopleFluent, or some guys like that. And it has deficiencies. Do I put a recruitment marketing tool on top of it? Or do I decide to do a proper change and have a talent acquisition suite? And I think that is the first question you need to answer. And to answer this question, just ask yourself, can I market in one system and hire in another? Like, how would you run?
Integrate those.
Yeah, how would you integrate those? How do you maintain consistency that you've actually interviewed Jerome last week and now you're marketing to him, but you just rejected them, or maybe they're... So having an integrated talent acquisition suite is really key. And some HRIS vendors are coming with a recruitment module, and they say, oh yeah, a suite is important. But actually, what is important is the talent acquisition suite, not the suite of HR, right?
Sure.
If you do recruiting, it's like from the first point of contact on your website to the email campaigns, to the nurture, to the events, to the advertising, the referrals, and all of the process that goes there. This is a suite. This is a complete suite. And if you buy an ATS or a new ATS like a Workday or something, the first thing you need to do then is put a marketing tool on top of it, a social tool, a tool to post your job, a tool to connect to LinkedIn, tool. And so in fact, you don't have a suite. They tell you have a suite, but actually you don't. You just have a very narrow recruitment management software that doesn't do marketing. So that's the first question you need to answer. And I think more and more companies realize that, actually, I do want to have an integrated talent acquisition suite because that makes sense. Once you come to this realization, then what do you expect from an integrated talent acquisition suite? And I think you expect three things, and you evaluate on those three things. You evaluate one on how is this going to help me find and engage candidates? And I have some hard to find skills where I need to build talent pools and nurture those people over time. I have graduates that I go and pick up from universities. I have a referral program that is coming. I need to advertise jobs for certain skills. I need to have a good website, like the whole marketing stack. How is this going to help me find and engage candidate? And how is the experience of candidate with that system? That, for me, this is the number one lens. The second lens is, okay, are the hiring managers going to use this? Because if the hiring managers are not using it, I'm sorry, you're not going to be successful. Like if the entire recruiting conversation takes place in email, and then the recruiters have to actually update the ATS on Friday afternoon like everybody does, it's not going to work out, right? I met a company that was telling me this problem has gone so bad, they actually opened a data entry center in Manila where they update the ATS, right? They have a team to update the ATS because nobody uses it. And so you cannot be successful. And it's interesting that so many RFPs come out and they're like, do you have this little feature number 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes to 1,000 features. Nobody says, are the hiring managers going to use it? And the hiring managers are usually not part of the evaluation. So I said, bring the hiring managers into the evaluation. And if you can get your VP sales or your VP engineering or your CMO to look at the tool and say, oh yeah, that'd be great, I would use this every day, then you know you're into something, because you're going to be able to rebuild that relationship between recruiting and hiring managers and have a collaboration there that will drive better hiring decisions. So one, is this going to help me find candidates? Two, are hiring managers going to use it? And three, is this going to make my recruiters more productive? Right? And recruiters today have a hard job, right? It's their industry,
so much competition.
And so much competition, and their job is being transformed, right? They used to process applicants, now they actually have to market, they have to be sourcers, they have to be marketers, they have to be quick. It's really hard. And when you think about the life of a recruiter, they use a ton of systems, right? They have to use LinkedIn, they have to use Indeed, they use assessment tools and background check tools and reference and maybe a video interview and scheduling and this and that. So look at, okay, is this going to be my core platform where everything that recruiters need to do, all their processes, all their data, and all their suppliers are pre-integrated? Is this an ecosystem, right? So am I buying an iPhone that has a lot of apps and I know that I have one device and I get everything on it? Or am I actually buying a niche solution where my recruiters are still going to have to use 17 different systems that don't talk to each other? And that speaks to recruiter productivity. So candidate experience, hiring manager engagement, and recruiter productivity are, for me, the three core criteria, functional criteria for selecting a new talent acquisition suite. And then, of course, you get into the technology requirements, so that it's a modern cloud platform. Does it have a layer of intelligence? Is it compliant? Is it global? Is it easy to operate? Can I configure it myself? So this is more for the HRIS side of things. That is actually an essential part of making that choice, of course.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for breaking it down into those three areas. I think it makes it a lot easier to understand and view, giving it that perspective. And I think you pointed out one critical thing there, which was the execution. So many organizations focus so much on the platform, but they should be putting the same amount of effort into the actual execution and the usability, adoption. And you are right, there always seems to be an afterthought for some reason, and they expect people in the business just to adopt that. You can have the best tools in the world and the best strategy, but if people aren't doing it, then the data's not gonna come out on the other end. Really, it's not gonna work. So yes. That's fantastic. Could you share an example of perhaps a client story that you're proud of, some of the work that you guys have been doing, that you've seen results in organizations? Yeah,
absolutely. Gosh, there are many. I think maybe one I'd point out is driving the transformation of recruiting at Visa, the credit card company. Obviously, everybody knows them, right? And so Visa was running an old ATS, Teleo, and they run on Workday as an HR system. And they realized that, they really need to be able to compete for talent in a more effective way. And we had Michael Ross, their SVP HR, talk at our customer conference a couple of months ago. And his vision of recruiting and how they want to run recruiting really aligns well with what we think modern hiring success looks like. And so they've really leveraged SmartRecruiters. So we deployed SmartRecruiters globally in about 6 months. So we transitioned all the data from Teleo from all the countries, and they went live. And what that really did is it basically gave I want to say a breath of fresh air to the recruiting team and enhance the candidate experience significantly. That was one. Two, it brought the hiring managers back close to the recruiters and helped build that partnership. And it really simplified the overall recruiting operations. And I think what business results they're seeing are an increase in quality of hire, right? Better candidates come in, better choices, better decisions are being made with collaboration. An increase in candidate experience, an increase in recruiting efficiency, which we measure by the percentage of jobs or positions that are filled on time. So they're more agile. And from a cost perspective, they've obviously been able to rationalize because they are more organized, and so their cost per hire overall went down. So all the core metrics, right, of cost, quality, and time kind of get impacted by a better system. I think quality of hire is the most important one here, and I'm not going to say it doesn't matter how much cost you spend, but actually when you use headhunters, you do that because you found a great candidate, and it's going to cost a lot of money, but it's a great candidate. So it shows that actually the ability for an organization to consistently deliver the best candidate to the business on time is just very, very, very critical. And the cost that you put there it has immediate return, right? So the return on investment on a talent acquisition suite is just measured in months, right? It's like the cost of technology compared to the benefit you get as an organization is very, very clear.
Fantastic. And what have you learned from, since you launched this business? Of course, you've seen the industry evolve in front of you, and you've been part of that. Mm-hmm. What are the things that you've learned personally on that journey from working with these organizations that you've then adapted into your own business?
Yeah. So we obviously use our own hiring success methodology.
I hope so.
Right. I've learned a fair bit on the candidate marketing and sourcing perspective. I've done this a long time, and so I kind of fine-tuned my best practices here. What I've really learned is actually on the collaboration side, and so we run a very collaborative interview process. We have every candidate interviewed by at least 4 people. Including 2 peers and obviously their hiring manager, and we have clear scorecards, and we do what we call pre-employment performance reviews. So the idea goes, okay, if I hire you for a certain job, then in 6 months we're going to do a performance review. And I'm going to evaluate you on those 5 criteria. Did you make your quota? Did you do this? Did you do that? Are you friendly with customers? Mm-hmm. Traditional performance review. Mm-hmm. So why not actually take those performance review criteria, and use this as an interview criteria, and ask the interviewers to actually rank candidates or evaluate candidates on how do they think they're going to do on those performance review criteria. And this has worked really nicely. So you combine like a really down-to-earth view of do I think this person is going to be a good performer, with the collaboration of having 4 interviewers, and this really drives very, very good behaviors and drives the quality of hire up. And today it's one of the really good things we have managed at SmartRecruiters, and we're a small company, right? We have just under 200 employees, so we're not as big as our customers, I guess. But every person that is hired at SmartRecruiters, we know why we are hiring this person. We are proud of hiring this person. It's a team decision. It's against good criteria. And actually, our first year turnover is like 0, basically.
Fantastic.
We've not, I'm not saying we're perfect, but this has really helped.
Fantastic.
So it's good to see.
And have you is this something that you share with your customers as well, and have you embedded this in any way in your service?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole scorecard and collaboration is a core functionality of SmartRecruiters, of the system itself. So this is built in, and it's heavily leveraged by all customers. We share, so the technology is there, and then we share the best practices. So we have this hiring success group, and we have our annual hiring success conference. Last year, we had over 500 people there, and speakers. The Hiring Success Conference was actually rated one of the top 10 best HR conference in the world recently. So we're pretty proud of that. And this year it's in March 12 to 14 in San Francisco. And it's not just SmartRecruiters customers, right? It's innovators. We have a startup competition. We have influencers coming, and it's all things hiring success, right? It's really about how do you build an organization that is really good at attracting and hiring amazing talent on time, on budget, consistently, right? Which is hiring success.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And it must be great. And obviously this is what I do personally myself, as you know, and getting all of those individuals in one room must be very exciting. And the thought-provoking, the innovation, challenging, what we normally see as recruitment methodology. So that's what it's all about. And everyone there is for the same reason, right? Everyone's coming along with similar goals, and that's what makes it quite powerful to have everyone in the room. And you can't replace that face-to-face interaction.
No, you can't. I agree. You can't replace it, and the level of passion of the people that attend hiring success, and generally of people who have joined the SmartRecruiters family is pretty high, right? And the reason here is simple. It's hard to be a talent acquisition leader today. It's if you don't have the right tools, if you are trying to run a sales and marketing like function that is amazing at getting talent and choosing the right one, and the tools you have for that were designed 20 years ago, and they are automated workflows, and the business is a lot of pressure to deliver the talent. So you're really in a tough spot, and you have to reinvent yourself. And so the people who join this are on a mission to reinvent recruiting. They are on a mission towards hiring success. And there is a unified journey. And I think the best compliment we had, or I had at the end of our conference last year, was this analyst from a big analyst firm came to me and he said, Jerome, it's weird because I go to a lot of these conferences and there's something special here. I mean, it's like, normally it's like vendor customer kind of gray. Yes. And here it's really like, it feels like a we. It's like you guys are in this together. I don't know how this happened, or did you do this intentionally, or how did you do this? And I think the answer is clear, right? We are unified with our customers, unified by a single purpose. And the purpose we have is hiring success. We're here to deliver hiring success, to help companies get amazing talent, and to help people find great jobs. And if you are on that journey, if you are interested in that journey, then the hiring success community and SmartRecruiters is a good spot.
Fantastic. Well, it's definitely an area to be passionate about, and it's great to hear you so passionate about it, and that explains why you've been doing it for so many years. It's kept you engaged and you excited. Moving forward, there's so much talk about predictive analytics and AI, etc. Where do you see the biggest room for improvement, and where we're going forward now for the next few years? How do you see it evolving?
Yeah, so we are, I think we are entering a very interesting time here in the availability of data and algorithm to help connect people to jobs, which is the core mission here. It's also a slightly slippery slope because we don't want to over leverage machines, and we especially in an area like recruiting. So I would say the areas that we are investing in and we see as good moving forward. One is AI. And we have a team working on AI. We made an announcement about this earlier this year, and we're actually in an alpha mode already with some of our customers. And what this AI does, it looks at all the resumes that you get. It looks at the patterns of what kind of people you've been evaluating. It looks at who you review, who you interview, who you offer, what are the profiles, and so on. And then it's going to dynamically help you screen candidates. So these are the resumes, the people that I think you should be looking at. Mm-hmm. It's going to help you discover new talent. Like when you create a job, it's like, actually this person might be a good fit, whether it's an internal, so employees internally, which is obviously critical, or external talent pools. And then market is going to help you market your jobs to the right audience. So right now you push your jobs over to Indeed, you get 200 resumes and you're going to reject 199 of them. And this is really not helping anybody. So we think the future of advertising, recruitment advertising, is really to advertise to the right candidate in a very, very targeted way. So this AI is great. It gets everybody excited. It actually is pretty cool. The thing that I question and I challenge our team with is how does this AI avoid being just an engine to replicate bias, and how does this AI actually inject a level of surprise, a level of diversity, and how do we help our customers? And because we are very, very invested in diversity and helping good practices in recruiting in general.
Yeah.
And so how does this AI actually help customers achieve that? And so the good thing is, as a talent acquisition suite, we see everything, right? We see all the candidates that come in, we see everything that happens to those candidates, and we see everybody that gets hired and why and how. So we can predict a lot of things. And we just need to make sure that we make a really good use of this data, so that we promote better practices with customers. So that, I think, is something that will really change the world of recruiting going forward, and something that we are investing heavily on or in.
And with that, what do you see the biggest barrier to entry on that? Because for me, when you were speaking, the first thing I thought, which is what we spoke about earlier, is the data has to be input first in the right way for you to draw those conclusions. So is that what you see as the biggest barrier? Of course, the technology is evolving rapidly, faster than people ever expected, I think. And we're on that doorstep, as you said. How are companies, or how would you recommend companies need to move on this? Because a lot of people, they're just sitting waiting, seeing, where's my competitor going to go? Who's going to jump on it first? How any advice for HR leaders looking in the area of how they can best prepare or what to look for?
Yeah, I think value the data, and if you don't have the right data, you cannot do anything. And so this is back to you have an ATS and a CRM on top of your ATS. So you run, or an HRIS and you put a CRM on top. If that's your construct, you're never going to get anything. Like if you post jobs. If you post jobs using a job aggregator or something, then you don't even know what happens to people, right? So far, we're down to very simple, okay, if I post a job to LinkedIn, how many candidates am I going to get? How many of those candidates am I likely to interview? And how likely am I to make a hire? Just this data is not available. LinkedIn doesn't have it because they don't know what happens after you apply. And the ATS doesn't have it properly because they actually don't have all the clicks and the posting before, because they rely on it. So just treat your data as an asset. That's why we advocate for an integrated talent acquisition suite, because once you have everything in one system, you start to learn a lot faster. So that would be my main advice. Think about an integrated talent acquisition suite to have all your data in one place. And then engage your vendors on this topic and see what they are actually going to offer, or maybe try independent tools. We have, like on SmartRecruiters, we have this marketplace I told you. So we are like a platform, so we expose the APIs. So we're building our own AI tool, but we also have 7 different AI companies that are integrated to SmartRecruiters that you just need to press a button and they'll pull your data and start playing with it and show you results. So you can try. There's a lot of innovation on this. At Hiring Success last year, we had 7 CEOs debating on AI and innovating in this area. And it's a good area to start innovating.
Fantastic. I think what's really exciting, we've seen a lot of the functions in the business go through this transition. We've seen sales go through this transition. We've seen marketing go through this transition. Now we're seeing HR and recruitment go through this transition. Yes. And as you said, it's a tough time to be in the area, but it's the most exciting time to be in the area as well, right?
It's an amazing time to be in the area. And I think the one message I would have to HR leaders on this topic is, recruiting is not an HR workflow. Mm-hmm. It's not a workflow. It is a sales and marketing function. And if you start to think about it as a marketing function, as a sales and marketing function, if you start to operate it as a sales and marketing function, then great things happen.
Fantastic. Well, look, that leads us nicely on to what we call, before we finalise and wrap things up, the quick fire round. So here I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and you have no more than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
I'm up for it. Absolutely. Fire away.
What was the sort of the one thing that was holding you back from becoming a leader in the recruitment space?
Nothing's holding us back. We absolutely are going to become the leader in the recruiting space.
Fantastic. Great answer. I really like the answer. What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Hire the best people you can.
How did I know you was going to say that? What's one book that you would recommend to HR leaders, and why?
The Hard Things About Hard Things, which is a really good deep dive into what it means to be a startup and to drive innovation in organizations.
Fantastic. Can you share an internet resource that you use to increase your own personal productivity and stay up to date with current events in recruitment?
Okay, I'm not going to say smartrecruiters.com/blog because this is an amazing blog that of course you should follow.
If you have a blog, then great. No, of course.
No, we actually are investing quite heavily in the blog and making it, the source of truth for hiring success. So we really are heavily invested in this hiring success. It's coming out nicely. It's a methodology. I'm thinking about writing a book about it, and so. It's like you can write to customers about customer success if you go to, I don't know, the website of Salesforce, but if you're interested in hiring success, then I would say smartrecruiters.com/blog.
I'll link that in the description for everyone so they can see that. And what's one thing about your business that most excites you today?
When I come back home every evening, my daughter asks me always the same question.
Really?
And she says, so Dad, how many jobs have you created today?
Wow.
And to me, that, in her eyes as a child, that's what I do for a living, right? I create jobs, and I take this mission pretty seriously, and I think we all do here at SmartRecruiters. I think, the recruiting market is far from being perfect. It's hard for companies, and frankly, it's really hard for people there. And I think leveraging technology, we could do a much, much better job at connecting people to jobs. And so, I like to celebrate every hire that is made by our customer, every candidate that finds a job, and every time that we could make this a little easier for the company or for the candidate or for both, that makes my day and keeps me going.
Fantastic. It's amazing how children have they have a way of just simplifying things that we all forget about. That creativity, it's amazing how they get rid of all of the noise and they see it for what it is. So that's fantastic. Well, look, Jerome, you've given us some great actionable advice, and I know that our members will be a lot better off for it. So thank you very much for that. Give our members one sort of parting piece of guidance, and also the best way to get in contact with you.
Yes. So one piece of advice, recruiting matters. It drives everything in an organization. And if you think about the importance of who you hire, I think who you hire today defines who you are. Our tagline is "You are who you hire," and it is true. Who you hire today defines who you are. So look at recruiting for what it is. Make it a competitive advantage. Turn it into an active sales and marketing function. Don't let your HR vendor tell you that this is a module of an integrated suite and turn it into a workflow, because that doesn't work. And the best way to get in touch with us is through our website or directly to me. My email address is Jerome, Jerome, @smartrecruiters.com. I welcome questions, contacts, ideas, anything. Feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you again. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Guys, make sure you head over to hrleaders.com. I will make sure I link all of the show notes, suggestions, email, all of the everything we've discussed on the episode and that we've been talking about. And Jerome, thank you again for sharing your journey with us. And I wish you all the best until we next speak. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.